The Allegory of the Cave by Plato. The Allegory of the Cave was presented by the Greek philosopher Plato in his work Republic between the years 514 through 520 AD. It was written as a dialogue between Plato and his brother Glaucon and his mentor Socrates. When this was written, it was meant to be narrated by Socrates. This is a story that contains a lot of symbolism. After I'm done reading the story, I will tell you what I think of the symbolism is in the story and what it means. Feel free to leave any comments of what you think the symbolism is. I do look forward to reading them. Plato begins by having Socrates ask Glaucon to imagine a cave where people have been imprisoned from childhood. These prisoners are chained so that their legs and necks are fixed, forcing them to gaze at a wall in front of them, and not to look around at the cave, each other, or themselves. Behind the prisoners is a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners is a raised walkway with a low wall, behind which people walk carrying objects or puppets of men and other living things. The people walk behind the wall so there is no bodies that do not cast shadows for the prisoners to see, but the objects they carry do. The prisoners cannot see any of what is happening behind them. They are only able to see the shadows cast upon the cave wall in front of them. The sounds of the people talking echo off the walls, and the prisoners believe these sounds come from the shadows. Socrates suggests that the shadows are reality for the prisoners, because they have never seen anything else. They do not realize that what they see are shadows of objects in front of a fire, much less that these objects are inspired by real things outside the cave which they do not see. Plato then supposes that one of the prisoners is freed. The prisoner would look around and see the fire. The light would hurt his eyes and make it difficult for him to see the objects casting the shadows. If he were told that what he is seeing is real instead of the other version of reality he sees on the wall, he would not believe it. In his pain, Plato continues, the freed prisoner would turn away and run back to what he is accustomed to, that is, the shadows of the carried objects. He writes, it would hurt his eyes, and he would escape by turning away to the things which he was able to look at, and these he would believe to be clearer than what is being shown to him. Suppose that someone should drag him, by force, up the rough ascent, the steep way up, and never stop until he could drag him out into the light of the sun. The prisoner would be angry and in pain, and this would only worsen when the radiant light of the sun overwhelms his eyes and blinds him. Slowly, his eyes adjust to the light of the sun. First, he can only see shadows. Gradually, he can see the reflections of people and things in water, and then later see the people and things themselves. Eventually, he is able to look at the stars and moon at night until finally he can look upon the sun itself. Only after he can look straight at the sun is he able to reason about it and what it is. Plato continues saying that the freed prisoners would think that the world outside the cave was superior to the world he experienced in the cave and attempt to share this view with the prisoners remaining in the cave, attempting to bring them onto the journey that he had endured. He would bless himself for the change and pity the other prisoners, and would want to bring his fellow cave dwellers out of the cave and into the sunlight. The returning prisoner, whose eyes have been accustomed to the sunlight, would be blind when he re-enters the cave, just as he was when he first exposed to the sun. The prisoners, according to Plato, would infer from the returning man's blindness that the journey outside the cave had harmed him, and that they should not undertake a similar journey. Plato concludes that the prisoners, if they were able, would therefore reach out and kill anyone who attempted to drag them out of the cave. What I feel the symbolism of this story represents is indoctrination and brainwashing. The prisoners in the cave know nothing of what reality is other than what is presented to them by the shady individuals casting the shadows on the wall in front of them. These prisoners are brainwashed, and they cannot conceive of what reality is outside of the shadows on the wall, which is the reason why they act so violent when this reality is challenged by how reality actually is outside of the cave, and why the prisoners in the cave would kill anyone who took them out of the cave. This is akin to how people who are brainwashed act in real life. People who are brainwashed find something that challenges their perception that was programmed into them, they usually become aggressive. These people would rather live in a fantasy world than in reality. People who are indoctrinated or brainwashed cannot conceive the possibility that this is what has happened to them. It is easier to brainwash somebody than it is to convince them that they have been brainwashed. We have seen this instances of indoctrination and brainwashing for centuries. One example of this is in the form of indoctrination every single one of us has been exposed to since childhood through the public education system. The public education system essentially requires you to spend your whole childhood in an institution that trains you to blindly do what someone in authority asks you to do. You spend all day in a room full of strangers, and someone in front of the room gives you a lecture on a topic, and you are taught to blindly believe everything this person tells you is true, even if it isn't. Then you are expected to regurgitate that same information on a test later on. The people who get the best scores on the test are not necessarily the smartest people in the group, just the ones that are the most obedient. This person can outright lie to you, and you would believe it because you were taught to not question their authority. You are also told that the only people with merit are people who have degrees from fancy schools and colleges. You are also told that the only people with merit are the people with these fancy degrees from schools, when all you have to do to earn those degrees is to blindly do what you are asked to do by the people who asked you to do them at that school. Say if a few people who have those fancy degrees tell you that the sky is actually green and not blue, when all you have to do to realize that this person is lying to you is look up at the sky yourself and see that it is blue. But because of the indoctrination, some people will blindly believe them even though it is obvious that they are outright lying to you. This is just one example of the effects of brainwashing. I can list tons more, but it would make this video way too long. That was my reading of the Allegory of the Cave by Plato. I hope you enjoyed.